Hey everyone. So today I'm going to talk a little bit about some of my favorite books from this year. I'm going to do some honorable mentions and then some art books slash companion books. And then I think I'll do manga since it's in front of me, and then regular novels. So I'm going to start with the honorable mentions. These are actually all rereads. So I'm just going to go through them really quickly. And the first one is Defy the Night by Brigid Kemmerer. The next one is Six Crimson Cranes by Elizabeth Lim. And then I also reread Persuasion by Jane Austen and Howl's Moving Castle by Diana Wynne Jones. Those were favorites previously, and even upon reread, they still stand up to being favorites. I had a great time rereading this year. The companion books, like companion slash art books, there's two manga related ones. The first one is Full Metal Alchemist 4-panel comics. And this is like at the end of chapters or volumes, there were, all these like different 4-panel comics. And this is just kind of the collection of all of them. Even though I have all the volumes, it's kind of fun to just have these in one place if I want to go have a laugh. So yeah, so these were really fun, and still with like the signature humor of the series. So yeah, I had a great time. I don't know if this totally counts since I've already read the series. I don't know if this counts as a reread, but like whatever. The next one is the One Piece Color Walk Compendium. This one is New World to Wano. And so this is like all of the like color spreads from those arcs. Yeah, and so here we have like Fishman Island, and this might still be Fishman Island as well. And then there's some from like the movies and things like that. This one's like a Santa one. So it's just like it's just a bunch of art, but then there's also like a little bit of comics, like nothing related, just like little like vignettes, like nothing like story arc related. And yeah, so I always have a really good time looking through these and seeing more of the art and seeing it in color, and just kind of it's a little more slice of life feeling than some of the adventures that we get to see on a regular basis in the rest of the series. The other one, this is actually a fairly recent purchase. This is Houses with a Story. I just picked this up from Kinokuniya, and it's like, I haven't fully finished it yet. Yeah, so it's got like a witch's, this one is like a methodical witch's house. It gives you like the interior and like a little breakdown of kind of where things go, and then this is the exterior, and then like the plan of the building. And there's a ton of these. The author's purpose, I guess, with this was to like give you like just enough information for you to be able to like fill it in with the rest. And I thought that was really cool, and I really liked the art, and there's so many different ones that it's been really fun to flip through. It's really unique in its like who lives there, what's the shape of the house. Like this is the table of contents, and I like that it has a little picture of the house as well as the description. So it's really fun. And I like the like illustration style. This one's been really fun. Up next, I'm going to run through some manga that I have really enjoyed this year. So I picked up Demons of the Shadow Realm. This is by the same author as Full Metal Alchemist, and it's like signature style of art, and then signature humor. There are 6 volumes out right now, so the story is still developing. So I'm kind of just along for the ride at this point, but it's about these 2 twins that were like said to sunder night and day, and like there's a whole prophecy around them, and they find out that one of them has been replaced, like while the real one escaped, with her parents, and the sibling that got left behind figures that out, and they like reunite and all this other stuff. So yeah, it's still ongoing. It's still pretty early in the series. So yeah, I'm having a good time. The next one is Spy Family. I don't know that this like really needs too much introduction. I think there were only 2 volumes that came out this year, maybe 3. Maybe 3. I don't know. We got up to volume 12. I think volume 13 comes out hopefully early next year. I really want to keep going. So, this has been a delight all the time. The next new one that I picked up this year is Marriage Toxin. They're like assassin clans, and each one, they're like main families, and then they're like derivative families off of that. So like the main character, Garrow, he is part of the Poisoners clan. Like he's the heir to the Poisoner clan, and they're one of like the high-ranking like OG families. And his grandmother, who is the matriarch of the family, is pushing either him or his sister to get married and have a baby, like to produce the next heir for the family. And his sister is in a relationship with a woman already, and he's like, I don't know how to talk to girls, so I guess I better figure it out. And so he partners up with this marriage swindler named Kinosaki, and they're like trying to find like what is the thing that makes him dateable. And they're like going on missions together and trying to figure out what makes him dateable at the same time. And so it's been really fun. I've really enjoyed it. Going off in a completely different direction is Haikyuu. I finished the manga this year. So I watched the anime, I think back in like 2020 during lockdown and everything, because my best friend and her sister, my best friend's younger sister, and I have really similar taste, and she was like, oh, Lydia loves this, so you'll love this. And I was like, okay, I don't know that I'm really into sports anime, but like, sure. Instantly hooked, 1000% correct. And so I have always kind of wanted to pick up the manga. I started it last year and got about halfway through, and so I finished it this year. And it was just as good, just as incredible as the anime. And yeah, I loved every second. Except maybe when it ended, because I was like, okay, you're gonna go all the way. Like, you could just go all the way through high school with them. That'd be great. I would like that. Staying on the more wholesome side, I picked up A Man and His Cat this year and have caught up. I think there's 12 volumes out, and it's this older man who has been widowed, he's a widower, and his wife always wanted a cat. He finally goes out and gets this cat named Fukumaru, and Fukumaru has been at the pet shop for a really long time and was like, oh my God, nobody loves me. Nobody wants to take me home. And then he's like, gets picked by this older man, and he's like, oh my God, is this too good to be true? Like, does he really? And it's just, it's so cute. It's so cute. And then you start to see Kanda kind of come out of his shell, because he has been grieving his wife for a long time and has been like really reserved, and like he starts making friends, in part because of Fukumaru, and bonding over like a love of cats and that sort of thing. So it's just precious. Like, I was kind of likening this to Up a little bit, where it's like a similar premise, except he's not as grumpy as Mr. Fredrickson. Definitely has been a delight. We also caught up to Witch Hat Atelier. These come out so slowly, and I need them to come out so fast, like now. 3 days ago. But the art is incredible. So I fully understand why it takes so long. This is still very wholesome and cute and whimsical, found family, all those sort of things. But the stakes are getting higher and higher for certain things. And it's interesting to see how these bigger issues are viewed like through the lens, like through the eyes of a child main character or main characters. And yeah, I don't know. It's hard when like you as an adult are reading something and you're like, oh shit. And then you're just like, okay, but like she's precious, so like protect her at all costs, but also like there's some lessons you have to learn eventually. And I really hope the next one comes out closer to the beginning of the year so I don't have to wait as long. Still incredible. Another new one that I picked up is Apothecary Diaries. We watched the first season a couple months ago and I was like, wow, that was really good. Really liked it. And so I was like, I wonder what the manga's like. And so I picked up the first volume, read it immediately, loved it. And then I picked up volumes 2 and 3, read them immediately, loved it, and picked up 4, 5, 6, and like a couple weeks ago, and just have been busy doing other things and, you know, with holidays and stuff, and then just other life things. So yeah, so I haven't been able to pick those up, but I do think there's, again, like 10 or 12 volumes out. So I still have a little bit more to do to catch up, but that's fine. That'll give me stuff for next year. So no big deal. So the last one is a manhwa. So it's like a Chinese manga, but it is the Grandmaster of Demonic Cultivation, the comic. So this is the comic edition of the light novels. Yeah, and so I think I'm currently caught up to this one as well. I can't remember if I picked this one up first and then went back and picked up the light novel. I am very much enjoying this one as well. I'm going to go into some novels. So the first one I'll talk about is The Crimson Moth. This is like a witch and witch hunter fantasy. It's really well done. And that's one of my favorite pairings, I guess. I had a really great time. I haven't read anything else by this author, and I want the sequel, like, immediately. We're cleaning over there. But yeah, I think there's really something to be said for something that you like that is really well done, even if it's not something like completely new and innovative to the genre. Like it just, yeah, like you have to have something like that every once in a while. The same kind of goes for The God in the Gumiho. I grew up watching K-dramas because one of my best friends is Korean and she got me hooked ages ago. This is basically like a fantasy K-drama in book form, and it's like it's a little bit over the top. It's a little bit illogical isn't necessarily the right word, but like a little bit dramatic, a little bit like moody and that sort of thing. It was a really good time, and I could 1,000% see this getting turned into a K-drama. And there's actually a couple that have maybe not necessarily this exact pairing, but have similar tropes or like similar feel. One that we have watched for the most part is Tale of the Nine-Tailed. And then another one that it's not really a one-to-one, but Goblin. It's called something else in English, I think, but it's like Guardian something or other. But if you type in Goblin, it's going to come up. And it's not like a really, like, it's not a one-to-one to this. And I feel like Tale of the Nine-Tailed is even a little bit more similar to this than that. It was just a good time. And I think The God in the Gimeo is also part of a series. I think there's a second one coming, so I'm really excited for more from this author as well. The next one that was actually a pretty big surprise. I had no idea what to expect going into this. Long Live Evil was awesome. I loved it. I fully understand that this is not for everyone. Like, because it's a little bit meta, it's a little bit campy, like the main character is a little bit like out of touch. There are a lot of mentions of like dying from cancer or being like long-term illnesses and that sort of thing. And so there's a lot to like where I could see absolutely why people wouldn't enjoy this, but I had a really good time. I finished this and was immediately on Instagram trying to be like, when is the sequel coming out? I got this a month ago. When is the sequel coming out? And this one like really took me by surprise because I had no idea what to expect. This one follows a girl who was diagnosed with cancer when she was like 17, and she's now 20, and like treatments have stopped working. And so one night after her sister visits, she gets visited by this person, and the person is like basically like gives her a challenge and like sends her into the world of her and her sister's favorite novel. So yeah, and she realizes that she has arrived in the body of the villain, and yeah. So she's just like, okay, well, we're going to try and change things so I can accomplish this task I've been given and try to make it back out. And yeah, it was a really fun time. So I picked up from Broken Binding of Blood and Fire by Ryan Cahill. I liked the novel. This is the novella, and I think it goes novel, novella. So I read the second, and I really enjoyed the novel, which was, I think, his debut novel. But I was like, okay, like you can kind of tell that there's like, just with like the writing style and some of the world building, some of the character building, all that kind of thing, you can kind of tell that this is a little bit of a debut novel. You can tell that it's a really expansive world and that there's a lot of history and like development to get to the point where we are. And that's basically what you get in the novella, which is called The Fall. This is like a boy and his dragon kind of story, but it's a really expansive world. It feels really similar to Aragon a little bit, at least in like the initial premise and like a little bit the initial setup. Like you finished the first novel, and then this is set 200, maybe 500 years prior, maybe just 200. I don't remember off the top of my head. This follows the events, like the series of events that like lead up to how the world got to be the way it is in the novel. And like you see some familiar faces because there's humans, but then there's also elves, dwarves, mages, different like orders of knights that like I guess live for a really long time. Yeah, and I feel like the writing style was like it was just really well done. You get 4 different points of view, and this is only like 100 pages. and I don't generally like novellas. I feel like I like novellas more than I like short stories. I don't generally like short stories. I usually end up wanting more from a novella, but this was like, it was really well done. I am really excited to continue the series. I think the rest are actually, I think the whole series itself is on KU, and I just haven't. I've been using KU for different purposes, and every time I think like, oh yeah, I could pick that up on KU, I always forget to go do that, and then I'm also like full. I've like checked out too many things. I think the next novel in the series is coming out in like similar, like nice editions from Broken Binding. Like, look at this cover. Look at it. Look at it. Yeah, look at it, and then like let me like whip it away. Sorry for the glare. But yeah, and there's interior art and art here. It's just incredible. I love Broken Binding editions so much because they put so much into the art, and I'm like, I am so here for it. I need to remember that it's on KU so I can read it earlier if I don't want to wait for my Broken Binding copy, which they haven't even sent out the order form for. So it's probably going to be another 6 months before I get it. Kind of along a similar vein as Long Live Evil, a little bit. I read A Bright Heart by Kate Chinley earlier this year, and this was actually also a surprise because I've never read anything from this author. I don't know that I've read a ton from this publisher. I don't, it's what, I think it's Union Square. I don't know who the trademark of Sterling Publishing. I don't know what Sterling Publishing is part of either. This follows Mingxin, and she is murdered. And when she wakes back up as herself, but 2 years prior. And like basically like when everything starts to like go downhill in her previous life. And so she's able to change things, but as she like prevents certain events from unfolding, other things also change. And so she has to like figure out what's going on in order to prevent the wrong person from taking the throne and prevent her murder a second time around. And like that, I think also like maybe of her family as well. But yeah, I think this is also a series. I gotta look into when the next book is coming out and see what happens with that. The next romantasy book I have is Bride by Ali Hazelwood. This is super popular. I don't know that I really need to talk about this a ton, but it's basically a vampire and a werewolf who get married as like a marriage of convenience or like a political marriage. I had a really good time. I think this is Ali Hazelwood's genre. As much as I enjoy her STEM romances, this is it. Like, I had a great time. I'm really excited for the sequel for that one. I assume it's a series. There was stuff at the end where I was like, there's going to be another one. Continuing on my romance bag, I picked up Swift and Saddled by Lila Sage. This is the same author as Done and Dusted, but this one is like, she like makes out with this guy at a dive bar, and then the next day she realizes that the guy she made out with is her new boss, and she's an interior designer who has been hired to like go redesign a guest house at this ranch. I picked this up in Barnes & Noble one day, and it just sucked me in instantly, which you gotta love. And then there's a Ludacris reference that made my Georgia heart happy 30 pages into it. And I was just sitting there laughing, and I had a great time. And it's under 300 pages, I think. So, yeah. I'm not super interested in reading Done and Dusted because that one is like brother's best friend. I heard a review from Jess Owens where she was talking about like one of the things that was happening during like business time, and I was like, I'm good. That's not really my thing. That's not like my favorite like trope or pairing. And after hearing that event, I'm even less inclined. So yeah, but I do think the next one in the series is probably up my alley. So yeah, we'll see. Continuing with my romance. This is like a historical, like period romance. So this is A Lady's Guide to Scandal by Sophie Irwin. And it's this woman who several years ago, she was pushed into a marriage with this man that she didn't love, and she was like already, I don't know if they were I can't remember if they were engaged, but I think they might have been like secretly engaged. She was already secretly engaged to this other man that she was in love with, but her family like pressured her into marrying this older gentleman who she didn't really want to marry, and so she gets like pushed into doing this for her family. It turns out that the man that she was secretly engaged to is his heir after they were not able to have kids. They like sort of reconnect, but she's like, I'm so over being under this man's thumb. I'm going to go to Bath for my health, for my goods. And like her family is like pressuring her to get remarried and like already doing all this stuff. And there's stuff like at the reading of the will where she gets like an annuity of, or like, I don't know, like, I don't know if I can't remember if it was an annuity or like just like a lump sum fortune, where if she like behaves in a way, like she gets it, you know, within a certain amount of time, but if she behaves in a way that the family deems, if she behaves in a way like not befitting her station, then the family can like decide to take it away. I think within a certain period of time. And so when she goes to Bath, she like meets all these new people, and she's kind of caught up between a man who is an author and then basically like the heir that's taking over her home. And he, I think, is still in love with her, and, you know, that sort of thing. So it's kind of a love triangle, but it's like, it's a love triangle done right. I don't normally like love triangles, and yeah, I had a fantastic time. I also really liked A Lady's Guide to Fortune Hunting by the same author. This is what sparked my reread of Persuasion, because I was like, oh, this is kind of like Persuasion. But it's like the Austen novels kind of like flipped on their head a little bit and combined in certain ways, and it's just a fun time. I do have a couple, I think just 3 more that I read on KU that I wanted to mention really quickly. The first one is The Fake Out, which is book 2 in the Stephanie Archer hockey series. It follows like a trainer for the team and a player and her ex-boyfriend joins the team, and she's like, and like she's assigned to work with him, and she's like, I don't want him to think that like I had anything to do with this assignment. And so he's been in love with her and like flirts with her and everything. she's sitting there and he's like, yeah, we're dating. Or, well, they like agree to say that they're dating. You know, sparks fly and everything. So, yeah, it's just one of those, again, that was like really fun and great. So, I really enjoyed the first and the third one, but I think that one is still my favorite of the series. And then the next one that is also a sports romance is like a single dad trope, which I don't always go for those. It's more like a middle ground for me, where like I could take it or leave it, but I usually do end up enjoying them. Like I usually enjoy them over like being middle of the road, if that makes sense. I don't know. He's a single dad, plays with this baseball team, and she is a chef and she's kind of burnt out from her job, and so she agrees to be this guy's nanny for his son while they're on the road. And like her dad is one of the coaches, and she gets to hang out with her dad while being on the road for like 3 months with them. And yeah, there were a lot of like father-daughter moments that I really liked, and then a lot of changing career priorities that are always relevant, I feel like. I don't know, it was just a really good time. And both of these are authors the Caught Up is by Liz Tomford. Her and Stephanie Archer are both new authors that I found this year, and I've had a really great time with both of them. So it's always really nice finding authors that you connect with. Yeah, and then the last one that I want to talk about is Ruling Sixth Hand by Victoria Abeline. I started reading her and Zoe Draven this year, and I liked Zoe Draven's Horde Kings series. It does feel a little bit more fantasy leaning versus sci-fi, even though it is, I think, technically a sci-fi romance. But because you're not like in space or, I don't know, like immediately transplanted from Earth, it feels less sci-fi and more fantasy. But I read the entirety of the Clickanian series in like 2 weeks, maybe max, between Zoe Draven and between the Horde Kings and the Clickanian series. It was like 2 weeks, and I am like kind of obsessed, and I think I might actually go out and buy copies of them because I had a great time. And Ruling Sixth Hand is the last novel in the series. There is a novella. I think you could probably read the novella earlier than I did. I don't know. I think I didn't really know it existed until I was like, when is the next one coming out? And then I was like, oh, I haven't read this one. Better. And it does say that it's a novella. So this one is not the novella, to be clear. It's the last book in the series, but it's basically like the whole series, like the premise starts with this woman being abducted from Earth, and she escapes and is rescued. But she is told that, like, you know, in order to like stay on our planet, you have to get married. Marriages only last 3 months, and men are sent to husband school to best learn how to serve and please their wives in every sense of that word. If you get where I'm going with that. I hope you do. Yeah, and so like there's a whole selection process, and in the first one she picks this guy named Theo. Hence the first one is called Choosing Theo. He has these scars on his body, and she just thinks they're tattoos. So she's like, okay, whatever, like that doesn't bother me. And he has never been picked before because of his scars. And he is like, I've never been picked before. This must be a trap. You must be a spy or something. And she's like, I've literally been abducted from my planet. Like, what are you on? And he's like, you're a spy. So that one was really fantastic. But then at the end of that, they realize that there's this whole like planet, like probably, I think multi-planet at this point, multi-planet, multi-race conspiracy where they realize that women are there. So let me back up. You find out that there's been an event in the past where some biological issue happened that like took out the majority of the female population. So there are not a lot of females, and there are not a lot of instances of baby girls being born. And so they realize that human women are compatible. And then they realize that there's been this like surge or this underground ring of smugglers that have been stealing women from Earth in order to like put them in like a breeding program basically. And that's kind of where the rest of the women come from, is that they're these women who've been rescued, and the world building is done really well. And like you kind of see the long-term political implications as kind of like a through plot for each of the novels. You see all of this build up, and then you get to Ruling Sixth Hand, and it's just this wonderful like culmination of world building, like politics and romance, and just all of this. So I had a fantastic time. I am low-key obsessed with the entire series, and I think that honestly might be the biggest surprise of my year. I didn't count how many books there are. I don't know that I really feel like counting. So I definitely forgot to include this last series when I was filming my favorites video. And it's one of the few audiobooks, I guess a series, that I've listened to this year, and it's The Thursday Murder Club. I had gotten several recommendations to listen to it on audiobook versus instead of reading it with my eyeballs. Great recommendation. It's a wonderful cast. I don't know if it's a cast or if it's just one narrator, but they do a really good job. I love all of these characters so much. So it follows 4 friends who are in a retirement community somewhere near London in the UK. They form this club called the Thursday Murder Club. They meet on Thursdays and they talk about murder and try and solve like generally cold cases. But the book starts with them solving a murder that has taken place on the property of their retirement community. And so it's them basically bamboozling these 2 police officers into helping them and giving them information and like teaming up with them. And it's charming, it's witty, it's funny, it's like a glimpse at like what aging is like and how aging people are treated by society as a whole. I don't know, it's so fun. Damien told me today that they are making a movie of this. I think it's supposed to come out on Netflix, and Helen Mirren is in it, which is perfect. Pierce Brosnan is in it, which I was like, I don't know that he's old enough, but sure. Celia, someone who is, I recognize her. I couldn't tell you what she's been in, but like she's, very British actress. She's in it. And then Ben Kingsley is in it. So all supposedly, I do think they finished filming according to the Wikipedia article I was reading. I think it's supposed to come out next year. But yeah, these people come from all different walks of life. Like Joyce was a housewife. Elizabeth worked for MI6. And Ron was like a union guy. Union, maybe labor. Whatever. I'm not up on my British political parties, but he was like a working class kind of guy. And then Ibrahim, he was a psychiatrist. Like the way that they work together is so good. I had a fantastic time with all 3 books. There are 4 currently out in the series. I have the 4th one ready and downloaded. We just haven't listened to it yet, but we've listened to the first three. And I do think the second one is my favorite of them. But I don't know. They're just so good. And it's one of the few mystery novels where I'm like, I wouldn't mind owning a physical copy of that on top of the audiobook copy that I have. It was great. It's perfect. I have heard that the fourth one is emotional, and I don't know that I'm ready for it. So we'll see when I am. I can't believe it was like, I think I thought it was a heading or something because it was like at the top and then everything else was like a line below. And so I just thought it was a heading. So I don't know. It was my oversight, but absolutely perfect. 10 out of 10. Highly recommend. Yeah, it was great. Let me know if you guys have read any of these, if you've enjoyed any of these, if you hated any of these. Yeah, and I hope you have a great rest of the year in your reading. I don't know when this is going to go up. I'm hoping to get this up before the end of the new year, so have a happy new year. I will see y'all in the next one. Bye.